So welcome to the channel once again. I'm glad you could stop by. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic called boundaries. What does boundaries actually mean? It's like thus far no more, right? Or just setting some lines in place to or some boundaries, especially if you want to live a purposeful life. You cannot always be extending yourself, and I think as mothers and sometimes even as Christians, we always want to keep on giving, keep on extending ourselves, not wanting to look like we don't care, whereas it's not just working. So sometimes setting those boundaries is very important. And even just letting people know, how far or what are the opportunities that are there, or when you are available and when I'm not available, so that if they come at a point in time, you're not saying no, and then it's like, how could she say no? Oh, how could Dr. Judith not see me? Or how could Antino not see me? Because it's not just possible at that time, right? I remember even my early days, myself and my husband, we were both studying, migrants in a new country, and there were just so many things to talk about. So we'd wake up early in the morning and we would sit at the dining table, him on one end, I on the other end, and then before 5 a.m., when I say early, I mean really early, like 4, children are still asleep, and then before 5 a.m., we already have some kind of, disagreement. And then our study time is messed up. So we set a boundary there and we said, don't talk to me before 6. I've woken up not to get into a discussion, but actually to study, right? So don't talk to me before 6. But as soon as you get up and you sit down there, something will cross your mind. Oh, did you call the children's school? Did you? So it's like, just write those things down. Then 6 o'clock, when the time for studying is up, then we can go into these discussions. So I think that's just a very simple and practical example that we can use for that. Also, when I was doing my PhD, I had set a boundary for myself that before, between the working hours of 8 to 3 p.m., I'm at school, I'm at work. Children are not work, should be in school also. And I'm not just available. Don't call me during those times. So that whilst you're at work, you are focusing on your work, except it is important. I know some of the new generation is like, hey, babe, how's work going? Babe is working. Don't be calling babe, how's work? Or you just calling at the wrong time. It's not doesn't mean I don't love you if I don't call you. I'm thinking about you, but I know that this is the time that you should be focusing on work, or you should be focusing on your studies, or you should be busy sleeping, not in the middle of the night, calling and like, monsoon. you know so those kind of things, I mean, those are very easy boundaries that you can put in place. And don't if you call me outside of this time, I'm not available. It doesn't mean I hate you. It's just that I'm focusing on other things. Of course, if it's an emergency, so for me at that time, if my husband is calling me within the time that he's not supposed to call me, I'm like, what happened? I'll quickly pick the call. And I don't want to quickly pick the call and it's like, eh, eh, no, or me doing that to him. It doesn't work like that. We need to respect each other's time and know how we set those kind of boundaries. I think there are also issues of, I mean, I've got adult children now, and if I call them during working hours, it's like, what's the problem, mom? It almost creates a panic for them also. So those are just easy examples that you may go. I think also in the workplace, between you and your boss, how you navigate that place. There's a lot of issues about workplace bullying. You need to be able to set those kind of boundaries and know that you don't do this, you don't even speak to me like that. It doesn't work. And set it up front. and even yourself, boundaries that you need to put in place so that you can be productive. You can be productive while at work. Hi, allow me to interrupt your video. I know you're enjoying it. I want to remind you about the Reflections on Prayer. It's a little book I wrote. It's a Bible companion, and you can get it on Takealot or Amazon. Get the link in the description below. God bless. Boundaries may not only be in terms of a third person coming into your space. Even you need to set boundaries for yourself, right? And it comes with the issue of discipline. How do you discipline yourself? How do you train yourself in a way that you know that no, I don't do this or I don't do that? And then for individuals, men, women, children, you need also to set the boundaries that are there. I think the Bible tells us about parents not provoking their children. So that's also saying there should be boundaries even between parents and children, right? There's also issues of children and parents. It's not every time. I remember some years ago, my one of the children had asked something from the dad, and the dad, is it every time? Is it every time? And that's really just saying even then there needs to be boundaries. It's not necessary, it's not for this or that. In your own life, everyone needs to have some kind of boundaries that they set for themselves. With our food, don't just say, because the food is there, I just keep on eating. Set boundaries for yourself. It may be difficult, but become conscious of it so that you set those kind of boundaries. My relationship with the word no, goes very way back to when children were little. In the sense that many of the young children, the first word they know, apart from mom or dad, is no, no. Why? Because they keep on hearing that word. No, don't do that. Stop it. And what does that say? It's such a negative world that we are showing to these children. No, before you say hello, no, no, right? And in that way, it's a complete word. It's a complete sentence. It's no, don't go there. No, don't do this. No, you know. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be such a harsh boundary, right? It could be not now. It could be I'll do that later. Oh, just a minute. But when we start those sentences with no, we create this very harsh, um, negative world that sometimes you look back and you regret that. Why did I have to say it that way? So it's also part of communicating. If you set boundaries, it means that you're also thinking of yourself. You're thinking of yourself in a positive way. You're saying no, or you're putting that no boundary in a way that you also can get things done for yourself. I strongly believe that everybody likes to associate with success. Nobody wants to associate with failure. So if you don't set boundaries, you're probably setting up yourself for failure. And then what will happen? Nobody wants to associate with you, right? So we need to find a way of being selfish, but in a good way, right? Even the Bible tells us we should love our neighbors as who? As we love ourselves. So you cannot say you love your neighbor, whereas you don't love yourself. You need to be able to set up the boundary so that you can make some progress and then you may be useful to others. So you love yourself, then you can love your neighbor. When we think of boundaries, it means that we are intentional. We're saying from this time to this time, or this year, I'm going to be busy with this. I mean, in the academic space, we are expected to publish papers. Many of us can't because we're dealing with students' issues, we're dealing with everybody else's problems, and we forget to actually address our own issues of publications. Now, at the end of the year, what story do we tell? Hey, you didn't publish. It's because you were not selfish, or you were not even you were not being intentional about how you use your time. So it's definitely not about being angry, but it's more about being intentional and very, very purposeful in how you go about things. When we look at marriage, and we are in the month of we always have this month of gender-based violence in South Africa. I'm not sure if it's a world thing, is it? Yeah, we have this gender-based violence issue, and it really has to do with setting boundaries. Really, really has to do with setting boundaries. And unfortunately, some of the societies that we grow in, they impose, or they set up the environment for gender-based violence to perpetuate itself, whereby a woman and even a man, I mean, I think it's probably getting worse for men now, because a man cannot be bold enough to go and say, my wife abused me. It's like, your wife, you yourself, you're abusing yourself. It sounds so odd, right? And it makes it even more difficult for men to come out and express abuse. Abuse to men may not only be about being beaten up. Women have power. They can abuse a man in a way that he cannot even say it outside. God will help and forgive us all. But it's boundaries in marriage comes when we want to deal with some of these issues, and they're very serious issues that we need actually God's intervention to overturn. The issue of gender-based violence, when I say gender, I'm not talking about female being abused in marriage, but even men being abused in marriage. These men are somebody's children, they are somebody's child, somebody's brother, somebody's sister, and somebody's son. And you actually don't want anybody, be it a man, to perpetuate gender-based violence, or a woman to perpetuate gender-based violence. And we need to set those kind of boundaries, and even with ourselves, to say, no, I'm not going to hit a woman anymore. I set that boundary for myself. Or I'm not going to abuse my husband anymore, be it verbally, be it emotionally, be it even sexually. We have to have a way of setting up those healthy boundaries, right, in a way that will allow marriage to thrive. Yeah, so boundaries, that was such a heavy topic. And I think there's quite a lot that can still be said about boundaries, even in the media, how news reporters present their work. There's just so much. But I think setting of boundaries needs to start with you. Set your own boundaries, and then you can now start setting boundaries for those on the outside. If you have no boundaries for yourself, I promise you, people will have boundaries for you also. It will just be a roller coaster of many things, right? Thank you. Thanks for stopping by. Always a pleasure sharing, and do share also, and like the channel, subscribe, and put some comments in the chat. Let's talk more about this. Ciao.